from around the world, welcome to the Insurance Guys podcast. My name is Scott Howell, your fearless host and leader, insurance agency owner and insurance evangelist for I Protect Insurance and Financial Services, based out of Huntsville, Alabama. And before we get started on today's episode, please help me welcome. He is a 6'3" sophomore from Mobile, Alabama. Parade first team All-American, Rivals 5-star recruit. He is a fantastic insurance agent and a great American. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand and welcome the incomparable Mr. Bradley Flowers. How are you, Bradley?
Great, Scott. How are you?
Best I've ever been. Last podcast of a 2-day batch file.
2-day bender.
Bradley, guess what?
What?
I am 1 hour and 15 minutes away from doing my two favorite things in the world. Shark fishing and going to the condo with my beautiful wife. And you know what comes next? Hot, dirty monkey sex. So I am fired up and ready to go. This might be the most excited I've ever been. You know, Bradley, most of the time, there's two reasons why I'm excited. Number one, what I just said. Number two, our guest today is a supernova, unlike anything I have ever seen. I just got through telling him right before we came on the show, I said, you're like Johnny Appleseed. You're just going around all over America planting little trees. And the trees of success in the world of sales, and I love it so much. But Bradley, I got to say this. You know how much normally, and we've only been doing this podcast 8 years. If we do it one more year, we're going to figure out what we're doing. By the time we get to this last podcast, you and I both are just like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this anymore.
I figured out the formula, though. You book somebody that you're excited about as the last podcast.
Or you, we could do, yeah. So I think what I've learned through this 2-day extravaganza we've just had is you are absolutely right. This chair setup that we have, because what Steve's going to realize here in a few minutes is about 30 minutes into this podcast, I'm going to look like I'm just laying down in this sumbitch because my belly starts hanging
at least
out.
At least the camera is blocking my views. It's better for everybody.
Exactly. So these chairs kind of keep you energized, I think, to some degree. We were so used to sitting in those old.
Well, it's funny. We used to do no video, and we were at a table, and it was pretty good. I mean, we've done up to like 11 or 12 in a day, and decent energy, And then we went to cameras, and when the camera's on, and back then, originally, the guests couldn't even see us. So we could kind of relax and kick back, But then when we added the guests being able to see us, that added a level of, okay, I have to be engaged, right? And then when you added the cameras filming us, by the way, if you're not subscribed on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube.
Please.
But when you add the cameras, that takes some energy out of you because you feel like you have to be on. And in fact, I don't know that you know this, we actually eliminated one camera. We eliminated
I noticed that we just have two now.
We eliminated the wide view where you could see both of us.
Right.
That way, if you're talking, I can kind of relax a little bit. If I'm talking, you know what I mean? You're not, you don't have to be on, but
Can
the
I ask a
chairs were
question?
a nice element.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Do you have both of those high dollar, like super expensive cameras right there? Which, by the way, we needed because there's not many men in the United States of America. I know there are in other parts of the world that are as ruggedly handsome as I am, which is why I've got my small town smoke show hat on today. Are those cameras connected to one of those devices that when you're talking, it's filming you, and then when I'm talking, it's filming me, or is it just filming both of us?
The device is back there, and his name is Rand, and he hits a button when you start talking.
Really?
Yeah.
Thanks, Rand. Anyway, love Rand. Steve, I'm going to give you the introduction you've always deserved. So here we go. You better get ready.
I'm ready. I don't even know what you're going to say, which makes it better.
A little bit. That way the camera can see your face.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. So he was born and raised in Quincy, Massachusetts, and he currently resides in Dallas, Texas. He is a graduate of Bentley University with a BS in marketing, and he was with Aflac from 2004 to 2017, becoming the #1 Aflac agent in the country, beating out 59,000 other agents in the middle of his career. Today, he is the founder, CEO, and visionary of the Sales Collective, and he's affectionately known as the Sales Contrarian. He is becoming a sought-after, world-class speaker on sales and sales leadership and challenges conventional wisdom, offering a contrarian approach to the art of selling in today's marketplace. Beyond his impressive resume, he is a captivating storyteller and a gifted communicator. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my profound honor today to introduce to you a man who is helping me transform I Protect Insurance into the juggernaut that it one day will become. And a man who I was first, Bradley, introduced to by your friend and mine, Mr. Jeff Roy. Please welcome, it is my profound honor to welcome Mr. Steve Haro. How are you, Steve?
Thanks, sir. Thanks, man. Quite an intro. Couldn't have written a better one myself.
Steve,
Awesome.
is it I meant to ask you this before I went live. Is it Haro? Is that how you say it?
Sometimes Haru, like kangaroo, is probably easier.
Okay, okay, Haru. Steve,
Yes,
here's why I desperately wanted to have you on the show. Now, let's go back in time for me just a second. Let me explain to our listening audience what happened, okay?
Sure.
So about 6 months ago, I attended the Greenwich Group Conference that I was asked to join. It's a group of around 20 to 25 of these very successful, very large agencies that Chris Paradiso and some other guys asked me to join. And I joined it, and it was the second Greenwich Group meeting I had gone to, and it was up in Northern California. And at that time, some things were starting to dawn on me about weaknesses that we were having, struggles we were having in our agency at I Protect Insurance. And we get up there to Northern California, and it comes time for Jeff Roy to talk, okay? Chris had asked him to speak to the group on some things.
I like to call Jeff Roy as the Scott Howell of Canada.
I don't know about that.
Yeah,
He's a lot smarter than I am. So Jeff gets up, and the meat and potatoes of his discussion that he has is he had met this guy, this group called the Sales Collective, and he starts talking about exactly what I'm going through, and what I had figured out was that out of a entire insurance agency of 14 people, I've only got 2 salespeople. And it's why we have struggled with growth. It's why we've struggled with, just a lot of different things. And he starts talking about how, and I think you told me, but I can't remember exactly how it worked out, but shook out. But somebody that knew somebody introduced you to him and his group. You met with Jeff, and you give his group, his agents, sales agents, insurance agents, which they call brokers in Canada, this sales DNA test, which we have now given all of my people at I Protect Insurance. And I will say, and you said this as well, Jeff, man, after those tests were given and the results were made public to him, and then I guess subsequently talked to the group, maybe not, I'm not sure. I think Jeff just started chopping wood, baby. Bradley, I think he just went in the next day and was like, you're going here, you're going there, and you're not going anywhere except out the door because you're done. And very similar results with my group. So what you did for me, and we're going to get into all that in just a second, but what you did with me was really substantiate what I already knew to be the case, which is I really don't have more than maybe a couple of actual insurance agents working in my agency, right? So from there, you take the ball and run with it, and just tell us just an overview of what the Sales Collective is. And then later on in this, we're going to talk about what I think you and I are going to do next, which is me hiring the Sales Collective to be my hiring arm of I Protect Insurance. Go ahead.
Thanks, sir. Thanks again, Bradley, for having me too. Can't forget Bradley over there.
Absolutely.
Right.
most importantly, guess who else is going shark fishing?
Uh-oh. Who?
So in 2 weeks, I'm going up off Jersey shore shark fishing.
Wow.
with a
Scott
client.
hates you so much right now.
No, I don't, because I'm going tonight.
Pretty interesting. Yeah. So
Yes.
I try to mix in fishing, between eating
Sure.
and
Sure.
reading. But so the long and short of it, when I met Jeff, and thanks again, buddy, for
Yeah.
all the kind words and intro
No.
and all of that.
Men every word
We
of it.
just had this kind of kindred spirit of
Yeah.
wanting to help people. Oh, and by the way, we love data, as you know, Jeff,
Yeah.
right? Loves
Yep.
data.
Yep.
And I spoke to Jeff. I was doing, they call it a tech talk up in Toronto, not TED Tech, which is the Canadian version of Vistage. So generally, I'm speaking to CEOs around the country, which is why I'm here in Salt Lake and then in Denver this week, helping them undo most of what they've done to their sales teams and
Right.
sales leaders. That's in essence what the Sales Collective does, right? Is really help revitalize, reimagine companies' sales processes, go-to-market strategy, hiring tools from top to bottom. And I met Jeff in Toronto. Was the only good thing that came out of that meeting, which is cool, besides me making fun of the Maple Leafs. And we just had a great camaraderie. He's the one that introduced me to Bobby and BigEye and how I met all of you guys. And so Jeff is patient zero. For us as a company, and shared a little bit about my background with Aflac. When I first got started in sales, I sold Cutco knives, and many of you know what Cutco knives are. I did not say a word the first 18 years of my life. I had to get a job. I got into a really expensive business school in Boston and answered a job ad that just said $10 an hour, part-time job and a phone number. Wouldn't tell me what it was. Ended up being Cutco knives. Went home, told my parents. My parents are the Costanzas, by the way, from Seinfeld, which will explain how I ended up like this. And my dad forbade me from selling knives. So of course, I rebelled, and that was freshman year of college. By senior year, I was number one in the country selling Cutco knives. So did that, then went to
That's a
Aflac.
rite of
Somehow
passage.
59,000 people did worse than me. And when I first took the test you guys took and Jeff took, how I got introduced to Sales DNA was a guy that ran part of Aflac and said, "Hey man, you have to take this test. It's unlike anything I've ever seen." And I said, "Mike, I've taken assessments before. I know DISC and Myers-Briggs and Colby and StrengthsFinders. There's a lot of good ones, but they're not specific to sales."
Right.
He said, "No, this one is." So I took it. I saw my results, and much like when you saw yours, we went up to the top of our buildings, right, and considered jumping off.
Right.
So I'm like, how did you sell so many knives and so much insurance, and you really suck at sales? That was my first take on the test. And then I realized nobody ever taught me 98% of what's on that test. And if people would have taught me that 25 years ago, I wouldn't have been number one just 1 year. It would have been every year.
Right.
But nobody taught me any of this. And so that's sort of how it started. And that's why, gentlemen, we use Sales DNA as the baseline for everything we do. When we help companies retrain their sales teams, Sales DNA is the foundation. That's the MRI. Then we build customized training down to the individual using AI. You hear that one, Jeff? You already know about this. To build custom learning paths for each individual human being.
Correct.
And so then we can provide support for recruiting and onboarding and hiring. And then we also build sales processes, which generally is step one. Most agencies don't have a lick of one. So those sort of things we do to help agencies and other clients grow.
I feel like that Cutco thing is like a rite of passage for a lot of future salespeople.
There's the Cutco knife, like college thing.
Kirby vacuums, another one.
What was the books that people used to sell and make a bunch of money? Do you remember that? Was it?
It would have been called. It's Southern something. They're encyclopedias. People would go sell.
Yeah.
I just remember I met this kid back when I married my first wife. Her best friend's fiance was like a senior at the University of Florida, and that son of a gun was making like $70,000 a year going door to door selling some kind of books. And Maybe it was encyclopedias. I don't remember.
I got home about a year ago, and my wife has this thing on her phone we call the Bradley alert that alerts her every time the credit card's charged.
Uh-oh.
And she said, Bradley, did you buy a $120 knife today from Cutco Knives?
I did.
I said, I did.
It's a big deal.
And I'll tell you why. I had a buddy whose son was doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
And his stepdad told him, not my friend, his stepdad told him that it wasn't a real job. Sales wasn't a real job, not Cutco. Sales, which just pissed me off and kind of made him feel, he's trying this thing. That's when you need to try stuff that's right out of college, And so I told him I would buy. Actually, what I wanted to buy were the shears.
Oh, the best.
Because he cut a penny in half in my office with these scissors.
Wow. Why couldn't you buy
Which I think is illegal because they were like $200. I was like, I'm not spending $200 on scissors. Right. But I was like, I'll buy one knife from you. It was a $120 knife, and I use it every night to cut my 2-year-old's chicken tenders up. That's not a joke. And it fits in my hand so perfectly. Yeah. Anyway.
Steve, I want... So here's how I want to start this, okay? Because I want all of these agents to hear. And by the way, later on we'll talk about pricing. Now I'm going to say this, total transparency. I think that for us as a collective group, meaning me, you, and Bradley, if we need to develop some type of program that we can do this through the podcast.
Yes, sir.
But provide these guys and girls that are agency owners, in my opinion, more choices relative to monthly options of payment, because this stuff is not cheap. It's not the sales collective, and what Steve's doing is not. It's not a $50 thing. It's I think for each one of my team members, and again, I'm big on transparency. I paid, I want to say, for 6 tests or 7 tests, it was like, how much, Steve? Like $300-$400 a test, something like that.
No, you got the Scott discount, right?
Okay.
So for everybody on here, every human being on earth that wants a sales DNA test, it's $600.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. So that's.
But we're gonna work something.
Yeah,
we're gonna work something out, and you don't even know what I'm working on. So wait till you see what I'm working on because of this exact thing, which I haven't even told you yet.
Yep.
To be able to bring down, right, the investment to mix it in, right,
correct,
with the way a business needs to operate.
Yes.
And so y'all know this, if you run an agency, and you run $1 million agency and your payroll's 500K, whatever, right? You have to have people that make you money to grow the business.
Correct.
But what you can't do is not have the people and not train the people. And so the way we're working it is to help people understand this is a function of a business that's probably akin to a VA, right, from who knows where.
Mm-hmm.
So if a normal business can't sustain a $30K a year person, a $2 or $3K a month investment in that person, that's not a business.
Right.
Right. And so we want to make sure that if somebody does make an investment like that, a $2 or $3K a month investment in their business, oh, by the way, that it will be 5 times that, right? 10 times that, because now you're hiring the right people.
Mm-hmm.
You're leading them properly. You understand how to coach, train, and inspire them. And so we're going to work on some stuff. I have some ideas for you guys that I haven't shared with you yet.
So Steve, here's where I want to start. Okay.
Okay.
The test that I took personally, and I had all of my salespeople take, again, the results were about what I expected. But I want to go through very quickly the 3 silos. But before I do that, I've got a story that I want you to tell. And this is a story. I was standing in the Staples parking lot in Athens, Alabama, and I've got Steve on my smartphone, and we're going through this sales DNA test that myself and all of my people that had the title at the time, not anymore, the insurance agent, meaning they were actually supposed to be selling new business, which in some cases was laughable. I want you to tell the story of when we got into this conversation and you said, Scott, I would say that 99% of the agencies and the businesses that I test their salespeople, the person that each and every CEO would bet the rest of their paychecks on would be the one that tested the best out of everyone, which would be their top salesperson, may actually not be their best salesperson. Go ahead.
It's funny. I told this exact story last night at dinner. So I'm here in Salt Lake. I have a big sales leadership workshop tomorrow with a big jewelry chain. And all their leaders have flown in from all around the country, right? Because they need some help leading, right? These salespeople. So we were talking about that exact scenario when a company does a sales team evaluation, we call it, evaluates all their salespeople. And I ask them before I show the results, who's your best salesperson?
Mm-hmm.
And every time they go, oh, well, it's Jenny or, Mary or Mike. I'm like, why do you say that? They go, well, they brought in the most
They
sales.
sell the most. Yeah.
I said, no, I didn't ask you that. I said, who's your best salesperson? They still don't understand the question. So we brought this up, and the best salesperson in oftentimes in companies is the one that happens to either be there the longest, have the tightest relationships, have a lead source that continues to come in, right? Whatever it might be.
Best
that
referral partner, or maybe has the niche that has the highest premium.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And so when we look at all the 21 core competencies of sales DNA, almost every time, not every time, but almost every time, their top salesperson is not the top producer.
Right.
And there's a plethora of factors. It could be one skill set that's lacking. It could be they have a confidence challenge. It could be they have dyslexia. It could be their leader is an asshole. It could be whatever, right? It could be a million things. And what happens, and what I told these guys last night is, you've made unbelievable draft picks and they didn't work out, and you called them a bust. You're the bust. And that's what, it. You see it in football or recruiting. Why are some NFL teams horrendous for 20 years? They have a different pool of kids they draft? No, it's the program.
Like
it's
the
the
Jets.
system or lack thereof. Yeah, the Jets.
Like there's no reason a team in New York should not be. I mean, look at the
Fantastic.
Yankees. Like,
yeah, right.
It. So getting visibility to this, and when I shared that story with you and also some other folks we met through BigEye, same exact thing, big agencies. They're like, man, I never thought about it like that. And we have kicked to the curb unbelievably talented diamonds in the rough. We didn't even know what we had. But because they were a slower learner, they didn't get support from their leader, they're gone, and then they get blamed. And now you're stuck with, I can't put words in your mouth or Jeff's or anybody else, right? There are people listening to this right now. There are people in your agency that shouldn't be there and shouldn't have been there for the last 5 years, but they still are. And that person, by the way, and maybe you could give me, Scott, I don't know what an average agency employee costs a business, or maybe Bradley knows. Let's just say it's 70 grand, right? It could be an admin person with benefits and salary and Uncle Sam. And
also depends on where you live, but yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Say it's 70 grand, all in, right? To employ a body. Companies will continue to employ that body for years, knowing they shouldn't, to the tune of several $100,000. That's real money, not opportunity loss. That's real money, several $100,000, and then tell me $600 is too much for a test. McFly, anybody home. This is why agencies stay small, because they are willing to throw away multiple six figures on the wrong person.
Right.
Not willing to put $600 to see if they are the right person.
So let's stop right there. Okay. Now we're about to go through the sales DNA test. Okay. Let me say a couple of things and then I'm going to let you take the ball and run it into the end zone. Okay. So the sales DNA test, Steve, I believe the average person, from a timing standpoint of how long it takes you to take the test, is what, 50 minutes, 45?
Yeah, 46.
46 minutes, okay?
Yep.
Now, the very first thing that you want to look at when you're about to review the many pages of results, how many questions was it?
180 or something like this. A lot.
Where
Close
did
to
you
200.
rank?
Yeah.
I want to know where you rank.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. So the very first thing where you as an insurance agent want to go is, I believe it's I think it's page 2, and up at the top in the right-hand corner, it will say, what's that term it uses where it's talking about how accurate the test is?
Yeah, confidence score.
Confidence score. You want to look at that confidence score, because we had some people that had 90s in the confidence score, which is a high confidence, meaning this is them.
We know they're not gaming the test, right? So that's a part of DNA. We have 6, 7, 8 different ways to tell if someone's trying to game the test. And then we, of course, let the leaders know, we don't trust this person.
So we had one person, Athena Stevens, in our agency that took the test and actually didn't score badly on the test. But then you roll over to the second page, and there were a couple things we noticed that were very telling. She had started and stopped the test 3 times. Okay, that was number 1. So she's not focused. So if we don't do anything else, we know that this is a person that has a hard time focusing on tasks and finishing things. The second thing we noticed was her confidence score on the test was a 30. So we have no way of knowing whether she accurately did that test or was she somehow subconsciously just trying to answer the questions the way she thinks Scott would want them answered. We don't know.
Yes, sir.
But so let's get back to the actual test itself. There are three main silos of the test, okay? The first one cannot be changed. It cannot be altered. If you score low in some of these areas in the first silo, the first one being the will to sell, okay?
Yep, that's the first silo.
And the number 2 down that list, the desire to sell. And then there's a couple of others on there. Okay, that one cannot be changed and is the most important silo, right?
Yes.
That's going to tell you whether this son of a gun ought to be in sales or not.
Pretty much.
The second silo, what was it named?
Sales DNA competencies. So this is the way people think, act, behave, and believe.
Yes. And your opinion on whether...
More changeable,
but still a little harder to change.
Yeah, it's harder. It needs some work, some coaching, training support. Yeah.
The third silo of the test is more tactical. This is going to tell you, as an agency owner, how effectively, just from a tactic strategy standpoint, this person can sell or where they need training help at. Okay. Just training.
Skill sets. Easiest to train.
So we had a couple of account managers that had the title of insurance agent that one, I want to say one or both, did not have scored 0 on the desire to sell. 0. The lowest. So 0 to 100. Okay. Imagine this is like a 9th grade test. 0 to 100's, 100's A plus, 0's an F, a 0 in desire to sell. That cannot be changed. It cannot be altered. It cannot be, you can't take that person and stick them in a bunch of sales training thinking that that's going to get better. It's not. They do not have the desire to sell. There was multiple, I would say most of my insurance agents in the responsibility category under that first silo. Again, guys, this is very important because that first silo can't be changed. That under, what was the one where you take responsibility for
your results, right?
For results.
Yeah, you don't perform as a salesperson. Whose fault is it?
Yes.
And the top 10% of men and women in sales, they take the blame, even if it's
Yeah.
not their fault. That's why they're the best. And the bottom 90 of producers will blame everything else under the sun other than them. That's why they don't perform.
And most of my people scored very, very low. In fact, a couple of those people scored zero on responsibility. I believe we had Clint, I think, scored the highest in responsibility at like 60 something percent.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah.
I was actually low. I was like 35, 33, and the target there was like 50, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
So that's your first silo. Now go through the second and third silos for us. And if there's anything else on the first silo you want to go over that as well.
Yeah. So a quick synopsis, y'all. So will to sell is the first one, most hardwired, very difficult to change. Desire, commitment, responsibility, outlook, and motivation. So desire is, do I have the desire to become a world-class sales professional? If you don't, that's it. You can't put desire in someone, right? And this is the mistake people make. Second is commitment. Will this salesperson or producer do the things they hate to do that make them uncomfortable? Anybody knows this. If you want to be successful in any aspect of life, you have to do the stuff you don't like doing.
Yes.
And people that score low in commitment won't do it. They won't pick up the phone. They won't go to networking events. They won't write thank you notes. They won't do the things that it considers it takes too much time, or I don't want to do it, or I don't feel comfortable. Outlook, easy. Are they glass half full or glass half empty? We don't need to go into which one's more important. The woe is meers, right? The Eeyores, the Karens, the Todds of the world, right? That's a male Karen. They don't do well in sales. And then lastly, responsibility. Our second to last is, do I take ownership for my results? And lastly is motivation. This is more for you leaders listening. There are three components that make up the driving forces for a salesperson. One of them is extrinsic, external, money, commissions, prizes, watches, boats, cars, so on. Second is intrinsic, internal, pride, joy, satisfaction, job well done, mastery of a craft. And then third is altruistic, which is for the good of others, right? MLK, Gandhi, and so on. If you, as a leader, do not know which one of those three drives a producer, you are in big trouble.
Yep.
Try serving rare, tomahawk steak to a vegetarian. See where that gets you.
So let's go to the second.
Sales DNA.
Yep.
So these two, there are 6 components, y'all, but I'll talk about just 2 since we don't have a ton of time. The first thing we look for in sales DNA is called the need to be liked. And unfortunately, roughly 8 out of 10 salespeople need to be liked by their prospects. This is a horrendous trait, and this is what causes salespeople to give away the farm. They will not challenge people. They will not ask tough questions. They are terrible negotiators. They will walk. And the distinction of the other side of the best salespeople on earth who don't give a crap what you think about them, they would rather be respected than liked. That's why they do the best. But a key here, everybody, they're all likable. You still want to go get beers with them and go fishing or shoot or whatever. They just don't care if you like them. The second part of sales DNA, especially folks listening to this in the insurance industry, is being comfortable discussing money. And 60%, 60, of salespeople uncomfortable discussing money. If you are in insurance, you are dead if you are uncomfortable discussing aspects of money. And we don't need to get into all the details and then we'll pause, but having financial conversations with a stranger, if you cannot get that information eloquently, specifically, right, tactfully, you can't be an effective salesperson. And this is a whole part of insurance. You got to know that information.
Right.
Second part of this is the way that we think. I learned this from Brian Tracy. You will only ever earn within 10%, plus or minus, of what you believe you are worth. So everybody just pause and listen to that. And there's a reason why most people never become millionaires. And the reason is not because they didn't work hard. It's not because they don't have skill sets. It's because they don't believe they deserve to be one. And that is what holds so many producers back.
Do you think
And that's the stuff that takes more time.
Do you think working on the right thing, i.e. selling the right thing, plays into that as well?
Yes, 100%.
The reason I asked that is I was having a conversation with my 11-year-old, and we just built a new house, and she commented, she said, "This is a nice house," and she lives part-time with me, part-time with her mom, and she's like, you know, how'd you build this house? And I said, well, me and your stepmom, she calls her mom, me and your mom worked really hard. And I stopped myself and I said, she probably knows a lot of people that also work really hard.
Yeah.
That may or may not be doing great. And I stopped myself and I said, but you got to work on the right things. You got to work hard and work on the right things. And
did you guys see, Bradley, did you watch the Olympics? Are you guys watching the Olympics?
No, I'm not.
It's
you have me.
Unpopular opinion. I actually could care less, but anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. And whenever this comes out,
okay,
y'all know
but
we're filming this during the Olympics.
Yeah.
It's a summer Olympics. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And they got gymnastics and volleyball and stuff. Okay. There's a kid from Worcester, Mass, from Boston, right? Area, sort of. All he was brought to do is do the pommel horse. Okay. Just that one thing.
Yeah.
That's it. No other events, not rings, not high bar, not floor, just that. The U.S. men's team hasn't won a medal in like 20 years. It comes down to one event. He's the last one to go. One event. If he nails it, they win a medal. If he messes up one sliver of a move, they win nothing. The kid nailed it. The routine of his life. They're calling him Clark Kent now because he's got glasses and stuff. Yeah. The dude is famous now. And it is everything you just said. You have to know what you're good at. You have to be passionate about that thing. And even in the insurance world, and Scott, you know this person, but I don't want to say who it is. Runs big agency. We tested their whole team.
Oh, we know who it is.
We found that there were people in personal lines that should be in commercial.
Right.
And people in commercial that should be in personal.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge point that Bradley just made, everybody. And that's what sales DNA is about. When we test people in the recruiting process, it is custom built for the role by the agency. Can this guy or gal sell commercial insurance in Mobile, Alabama? And maybe they can, or maybe they can't, but it doesn't mean he or she couldn't sell personal lines in Seattle, Washington. So somebody could be recommended for one insurance role and not recommended for another. And that's the efficacy of sales DNA and why it saves agencies millions, right, in bad hires.
So let's go to the third one, and then I want to jump to for a moment.
Okay.
What we're going to do after we take the sales DNA test and we decide that this person can stay in as an insurance agent. Maybe they tested well enough that we want to keep them in that role. Okay.
Yep.
But now we need to train them. So we want to go over that. But the last part of this, I want to spend the last 5 minutes on that I think is the most important part of this whole thing is what I led with earlier about, I believe that you and I are going to be working together in the future on the sales collective, basically just taking over every aspect of our hiring of salespeople.
Yes,
because it is very glaringly obvious that Scott is incapable of doing that. So last silo of the sales DNA test is the tactical part of this. Talk a little bit about that and then roll that into the training.
Okay. So there are 10 skills, 10 tactical competencies we measure. I'll just talk about a couple of them. One is hunting. Hunting is a necessity, okay? Yep. If you're in most insurance roles, will you pick up the phone? Do you pick up the phone? Do you know how to reach decision makers? Do you effectively use social media? Do you ask people for referrals? All of those things are part of hunting. Right. And we can tell you in 5 seconds whether or not a candidate will do any of that, right? Mm-hmm. So that's one. And then, of course, the people on your team existing, we can tell you if they're doing those things now. Mm-hmm. Second one's consultative selling. There's too much to go through, but most times, right, salespeople are like one of two signs outside of a restaurant. So, you walk down the street, you see that sign right outside, and it says, whatever, eat here, you might be hungry. Let's say that was written in chalk. Would that compel you to eat there? Hell no. That's how most salespeople sell. Why should I buy insurance? It's the law. Wow, that's compelling. No, you have to be the sign that says smoked brisket, $9.95 a pound, will be gone by 10 a.m., comes with 6 beers. Okay, I'm going in there. But that's not done by salespeople because they're poor consultative sellers. So we measure 14 different things there. And the last one I'll mention, which is the one thing I disagree with on the test, which is closing, okay? And I don't need to get up on my soapbox. We have plenty of time to do this later. Closing might be the single worst thing to ever happen to salespeople. Right? And it's been propagated for decades that idiot Blake from Glengarry Glen Ross, right? Always be closing. But yeah. People love to be, arm wrestled into buying. They love that. Closing is for bad salespeople. Listen up, everybody. Bad salespeople. There's no closing if you're great because your prospects ask you, Bradley, where do I sign? When do I get my medical? Whatever. That's when you know you're good. So looking at those 10 tactical competencies, we can see where a particular person needs to work and where they don't. And that's why generic sales training garbage doesn't work. You have to
Especially
find out
insurance.
What it is.
Yeah, you just said something that I've thought for a while. These, Grant Cardone, Bradley, even Alex Hormozy to a little bit. Even
tell me about it. I know all three.
It's all these like really slick pressure sales processes don't work in insurance because if I go sell somebody a car and I pressured them into it and they buy, there's not a lot that consumer can do to unwind that process. Whereas in insurance, and all the money's made on the front end, whereas in insurance, like if somebody doesn't stay on the books for 3 years, I don't make any money on it. You know what I mean? And so I've always been a proponent that all of that high pressure sales tactics that's popular now because the polarizing stuff is what gets the clicks online.
That's the movies. That's IG, right?
It doesn't really work in our industry. I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah, Steve. What Steve and I talked about after the tests, and we read the results, and we didn't really have, I don't believe, anybody that scored really high in the closing. And that was actually a good thing because the higher you score, like if you're looking at the test and you see somebody scored off the charts in closing, well, they're a used car salesman.
Yeah. Well,
they were selling timeshares or they got a plaid jacket and a gold medallion in their closet.
And right. Kind of like what you said earlier. I mean, if you do a good enough job on the front end, you don't really have to close.
Right.
What we've done training around, we did another sales assessment a few years ago with all our people. And most people were weak in closing. And for us, it was just teaching them to ask for the sale. Here it is. Do you want to buy it?
Which still isn't closing, right? That's just normal, right? Which, because it's all misconstrued.
Or looking for buying signals.
Right.
Your customer gives you a buying signal, you go straight to the contract.
Yeah, you're right.
There's other names I won't mention, then we'll get on that try to teach, you just have to have the right tone. Fuck you. With your tone, like no. Okay. You have to prove value, and they have to believe what they're buying costs less than what it's worth. That's how it works. But
Right.
you've got all these people teaching all these ridiculous tactics, and here's how to handle objections. And if they say this, you say that. Well, what if they say they're not ready yet? What do you say?
Mhm.
I go, cool.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Awesome. Yeah, I'll be here.
Yeah.
It's
Call me
not
when
that
you're ready.
hard, people. It's not that
Right.
hard.
Right. So, so we just mentioned, and I think you and I have talked about it, that in October, some AI assisted, individually crafted for, and by the way, whoever's listening to this, if you start doing the Sales Collective stuff the way we have in our agency, and by the way, I'm not making a penny off any of what we're talking about right now, not one dime. So for anybody out there right now listening that's starting this bullshit about, I bet Scott's got a deal with them on, not a penny. But I will say this. Every single person listening to this, if you take this test and then you do the individual training, there will not be two people in America that will have the same training, right?
True.
Because it's all individual based on your answers to the test.
It's funny. I just got off the phone with my CRO walking back over to the hotel here to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I know it doesn't maybe make sense or mean a lot to the audience, but if you go through a sales training, some generic idiot course, right? The 10X fraud man or whatever, right? How many lessons or slides do you think are in one training? You know, maybe 10, maybe 20, 30,
Yeah.
right?
Very generic.
We have 3,000.
Mm-hmm.
And in October, when this thing gets done, the best analogy I can give y'all, and maybe it'll work, because you said, Bradley, how tall are you?
I'm 5'7" on a good day.
Okay.
I'm
Scott?
6'3". Yep.
Okay. You guys get into your cars respectively after this. Okay. You reach down on the left side of the seat. What's down there? What are those buttons?
Adjust the seat.
Oh, really? Why?
Based on height, based on size, based on weight, all that.
What else can you adjust in a car?
Rearview mirror, the side mirrors, the.
Why not just make one car for all people?
Yeah, right.
That is what his sales training has been for the last 100 years.
Yeah.
It is insane.
Yep.
It defies logic. So we will have one of one platform on earth that will take somebody's sales DNA test and through AI will create a custom learning path for that individual. It will be able to be supported by their leaders. You'll be able to see and have transparency into what they're doing. Are they going through the lessons?
And are they
We'll also have systems of checks and balances. Are they learning? Are they improving? We'll have all of that built.
Yeah. So last part of this, and then we got to run because I've got to go shark fishing.
Yeah, we already know what you got to do. You don't have to tell us.
So the next iteration for us, I think, won't cost me much because we've only got 2 salespeople in my organization. God, it's embarrassing to actually say. Anyway, would be the personalized training, but we're waiting until that October time frame because they're kind of putting the finishing touches on that training. But here comes the last iteration and what I talked about earlier. Talk to them, talk to Bradley, talk to this group of agents that are listening to this right now. And I think most agents are like me in that they think they're really good at hiring and they're horrible at hiring. Yeah. And that, obviously, rears its ugly head when you hire a salesperson and they either don't sell anything or they're the minimum sales they could possibly do to hang on to their job. Tell our audience what your hiring process encompasses and what the Sales Collective will do for each individual agency that just hands the ball over to you guys.
Sure. First and foremost, the average agency, average company gets sales hiring right 1 out of 4 times, meaning you will screw it up 3 out of 4. You hire the wrong person. The reason is, number one, is the job ad is terrible. So when you have a job ad that is just job duties, you're going to get terrible candidates, terrible applicants, and that's who you get to choose from. So you end up going, oh, I guess we'll go with Bill. Well, why not go with Dave? Well, Bill doesn't have any felonies, so he can get a license. That can't be your hiring process. So that's number one. Number two is you get catfished. Okay. And some of you may not know that term, right? In the dating world, you think you're talking to that dude and you show up at the bar and it ain't him, right? Or her. That's catfish. That's what applicants do to hiring managers because hiring managers don't know how to tell. And the best analogy I can give y'all as you leave here is think about poker players. Do either of you guys play poker?
I do.
He does, yep.
The best in the world, and I'm talking a handful, okay, 20, 30 people, the Phil Ivies, the Annie Dukes,
Phil
these people,
Hellmuth,
Doyles, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what skill they have better than every other fish whose money they take?
Probably
Because
reading
guess
people.
what? It's not playing poker.
It's reading the person.
Yes, world class. Do you know how most people win money playing poker? By folding, not by winning big pots. It's the hands you fold that allow you to win all the money, and that's hiring. It's the producers you don't hire that make you all the money. And that's all of part of what we teach and how to determine if someone's lying, what to look for with your interview skills. We build a whole questionnaire of what questions to ask. And then on top of it is customized sales DNA. So we will craft and customize and calibrate that DNA test for the exact avatar of producer you want. You help us build it. And then we help you write the ads, place the ads, get the applicants, they take the test, and you can see, are they recommended for a conversation, which means they meet what you want and we think they're good, and are they not recommended?
And by the way, you're not even talking to the applicant.
No, you never say a word to them.
We get the recommended, hey, this person took the sales DNA. They are recommended.
You should talk to them.
You should talk to this person. Right?
Something I'll add to
and
that
the flip
too.
side is, don't ever talk to this person again. That's what it should say on the test, but it doesn't. It just says not right.
I'll add too, in regards to the job ad, what we've seen, and I believe this to be true, is that the best people aren't typically looking for a job.
Right.
Correct.
You have to reach out to them a lot of times.
And in your job ads, everybody, this may be TMI. Most job ads are written, right, describing the job. Okay, that's the mistake. The job ad has to be describing the person. The person has to see themselves in that role with that company, and they go, man, that sounds like me. And Scott, you haven't heard my "if you build it, they will come" talk, but that's the gist, everybody. The way you have to think about your agency, like the Savannah Bananas. If you build it, they will come. They will all come if you build it for the right reasons. But that's part of what we do when we help companies hire. And the last thing I'll share, maybe you guys can just spit out a number. I know the number for a regular salesperson. I don't know it for a producer. What do you guys think in top line revenue one bad producer hire costs an agency? What do you think it is?
250,
one bad
250,000.
It's
250.
It's complicated.
What would you say, Bradley?
I don't know, because you've got to consider the opportunity cost of not hiring the right person.
Correct.
You know, I mean, if we
What
hire,
would your number be if you just had to think of one?
if we hire a good producer, producer, they're probably going to put $150K in new revenue on the books a year. So if I hire somebody instead of them, I'm missing out on that plus what I'm paying that person.
Right.
The number for a traditional salesperson, y'all, a traditional non-insurance salesperson, is 1.3 million lost revenue. One bad hire. I think we charge 1% of that to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, that was how I wanted to end this. So you've partnered with a BigEye.
Yeah.
I know that we talked about the hiring portion of this.
Yep.
That I believe we're going to probably sign up for, and here in the near future, for you guys to kind of take over for us. But there's some discounted rates through the BigEye.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to just kind of briefly go over some of those so these guys know what they're looking at
I mean,
in terms of
there's
expense?
parts, y'all, that we're building that are DIY, right? We just teach you how to do it, right? So
Yeah.
you don't need to have us do everything for you, right? We're going to teach you how to do it. So there's so many more um, uh, lower, right, barriers to entry on some of these services that we're going to do just because of BigEye. And most of the stuff that we do is maybe 10 to 40% less for BigEye members than
Right.
any other person on earth. So, and we're so thankful for that. So yeah, there's so much coming, man. So many changes and updates. You have no idea.
Cool.
What's
So
coming.
for these agents, because we're going to jump off this thing right here in a second, how do they reach out to you or the sales collective to kind of, I guess, get the ball rolling if they want to either pull a Scott Howell and a Jeff Roy and test their people and have the kind of bad day that I had that day, which, you know, in some cases like mine are needed, you know. How do they reach out to you guys to kind of get this ball rolling?
Yeah, for now, y'all, just reach out to steve@thesalescollective.com. That's an easy way. You can also reach out to Jason, my buddy over at BigEye, right? Jason Sabo. Either way, we'll get back in touch with you and someone from our team will help. Okay. You know, love the connection on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's our medium. You know, I'm so thankful for everything we've been able to do on there and sort of figured out, I think, what people are really looking for in terms of content and help and get the nicest, you know, comments. So thank y'all in advance for connecting. I try to post every day on there. But so much of what we do, like you said, is getting up every day and trying to completely change the way that people think about professional salespeople. And that's why, you know, the Sales Contrarian's coming out. So got the book finally ready, January release-ish, right? So can't wait for that podcast coming, all kinds of stuff, right? So I'm super pumped to have this opportunity to meet y'all. And thanks for letting me share my alternative thoughts about selling. We haven't even got started yet.
That's it. Bradley, you got any questions before we go?
No, sir.
Steve, thank you for coming on the show. I'm going to
Thanks,
shut this thing
gentlemen.
down.
Thanks, y'all.
Guys,
appreciate you.
As I end every episode, rewards come from action, not discussion. Now, my opinion is the longer I'm in this thing, the more I realize you got to hire great people. You got to hire great people. You got to have a great team around you, but you also got to have great salespeople, because if you do, it can supercharge your agency, and if you don't, you're going to be a lot like we are at I Protect Insurance, which is, you know, steady, staying about where you are, on the hamster wheel, right about as much business as you lose. And that's a big problem long term. So we're in the process of changing that. Steve's helping us with that. But go write good business for the agencies that you represent and write good business for the companies and carriers that you represent. Bradley Flowers, love you.
Love you too, man. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, y'all.
Guys,
see y'all.
Guys, you were listening to the Insurance Guys podcast, and we love each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being a part of our family, and we'll see you back here real soon. Take care.